Good morning, and welcome everyone to the Women's Coffee Club. We created this club to provide a safe space for women to share and inspire each other and to learn from a different presenter each week. So we're so grateful for both of you. Um, our speaker this morning is Darla Williams, and she's going to be presenting the topic of love, the art of learning self-love. And I love that topic because all of us need that. And with that, Darla, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you decided this topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. And Rainey, really, honestly, this is such a sacred space for women. And I just really want to represent you for a second and really acknowledge someone who has taken their time, who dedicates their time and not looking for anything in exchange other than just the opportunity. So I really want to just deposit that seed into your heart of love because that is what you are doing, is holding a sacred space of love for everyone. And thank you for what you do here, because
Thank
this
you,
is
Darla.
really something that everybody really needs. And you need to be recognized for the fact that you do hold that space for us. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'll give you guys a little bit about myself. I'm Darla Williams. I've been doing the art of learning self-love for several years now. I started the art of learning self-love. I created a 90-day course out of something I did for myself. I had been in therapy for many years due to domestic violence. And I had spent so much time working on different areas and aspects of my life, but I could not break the loop of reliving the traumatic experience. It was stuck in my head. And no matter how many times I went to therapy, no matter how many times I went to group, no matter how many times I told my story, I couldn't break out of the story. And it was literally crushing me. I remember sitting in a therapy session, and when this began was after I left that therapy session. And in therapy, I had the counselor that was working with me literally in hysterics, and I barely cracked the surface of my story. I had to go and get another therapist to come in to assist that therapist, and I had to coach them both through how to pull her back out of where she went. And I realized at that moment that I had so many skills that I needed to work on myself with them instead of giving them to everyone else. And it was because of life experiences that it really developed what I do today. I had spent many years in and out of counseling from a very early age because as a very young girl, I was sexually molested. So I had to begin therapy early. Through that, my teen years, I was raped for my first real sexual encounter with a boyfriend. It was called a date rape. I didn't have any boundaries. I wasn't taught them. I didn't know what was right and wrong or indifferent. So being so early to realizing the monsters weren't, under my bed, that they were really the people that were surrounding me, I had to discover. And that was what broke that counselor in that session, was hearing me talk about it so easily. Because you have to go back through your story every time you go to a counselor. You got to go back through and be able to talk about it. And I was so confident in being able to talk about it because I had already worked on it in my teen years and resolved it, but they needed to know the backstory. She literally sat there and said to me, I don't know how you didn't become the statistic and that you're not just curled up in a ball in the middle of my floor. You should be completely broken. And I was like, well, when you can step out of the box of your life and look at it from a different viewpoint, it changes the way your mind works. You have to step out. And that was the day I chose that I was going to go home and start something for myself. And I realized what I needed the most at that moment was self-care. I needed something, and I began just developing. So that is how the art of learning self-love started. I needed to learn how to self-love because I needed to learn what was necessary for me. I had to begin understanding that I created the course for the importance of building a foundation of ourselves. If we don't have a basic foundation, we're just going to go with the flow and we're going to be torn this way and that way. And then we're going to literally be listening to the advices of everyone else around us because we don't know what we really need. And that was what I spent the majority of my life doing, being pulled this way and that way and not knowing what I really wanted. One of the first things that, as anyone in here, because we all do the masterminds, we all understand that the first and foremost, number one question we need to ask ourselves is, what do we really want? And without having that basis of what we really want and what we really need, we can't even begin to identify ourselves. So the art of learning self-love began with me identifying and learning who I really was from and what I really needed. We have to really tune inward. We cannot expect someone else to know how to feed us, to be there, to love us, to nurture us, to care for our needs if we don't even know our own. How many times in life, and I just want to see a show of hands after I ask this question, how many times in life have you been in a situation with a significant other and you're like, why can't you just meet me? And then when they turn to you, because men generally do, and they say, well, what do you need? And you're sitting in that space with a deer in a headlight look going, yeah, I don't know what I need. I just need you to care for me. But we don't know what that care really looks like. And when we don't know what that care really looks like, we don't know how to tell someone else. So identifying ourselves became the number one thing I realized I needed to identify me. How can I expect anyone else to know how to love me if I don't know how to love myself? Love begins within, not from without. It starts with us. And we have to know ourselves so well that we can actually begin sharing confidently with others. So that brings me in. So the first part of what I wanted to really talk about, I have 3 points that we're going to be covering today. The first part is about the importance of identifying and building a foundation. The second part I want to cover is looking at ourselves and discovering how we can begin building that personal self-love. Then we'll want to go ahead and lead up to the part in regards to building the foundation to boundaries. Those are the 3 points that I want to cover today in today's class. So before I get started, I wanted to ask if there's anyone that has any questions yet, because I know that that intro was big. That was a big intro.
Well, I saw Joey and Tamara raise their hands. So Tamara, you want to start first?
Oh, I was just raising my hand because I was agreeing with her. She had said raise your hand, so raise my hand. Fred's the
Okay.
wrong hand.
Okay. Joey, go ahead. Thank you, Tamara.
No, same thing. She asked if anyone would like to raise their hand or something.
Yeah, it was just interaction. That was, and it was just making engagement, helping others to come into the engagement of. So both of you, being that you did raise your hands, I do want to identify that right there. You both have known those words and been in those situations. So you have had those heated moments in life that made you realize that maybe you don't know yourself as much as you would like to.
I do want to say something, Darla. I agree with what you said, that oftentimes we look for love from the outside, from our partner and from somebody else, our bosses, approval from our bosses, our coworkers, especially your own partner. And you seek love there, of course, because they're your partner. But sometimes you feel like they're not meeting your needs. And what you said was totally true. First of all, we need to love ourselves. Love comes from within, and to know what we want. And that is, I think it's a very common mistake that we're expecting somebody else, our family, our parents, to give us love, but we don't always get it there.
And I absolutely agree with that, Rennie, because like for years, my husband and I were at each other's throats because, I didn't know what I wanted and he tried to do what he could to do things and, make me happy, but he couldn't because I wasn't happy inside of me. So knowing what I wanted, because Darla, what you were talking about, not having the boundaries, not knowing what you wanted, how could anybody meet those conditions? Because it's going to be flipping and flopping back and forth because you don't know what you want. So yeah, I totally agree.
Absolutely.
And I know that this is really opening a space for each of you guys that may be very vulnerable within. And I want you to understand that we're in a safe place. We're here, yes, it is being recorded, but what better way for others to understand that they're not alone when we can be vulnerable and share that we also have problems too, no matter where we're at in life. Nobody's perfect. No one's exempt from experiences. We all go through them.
Even with couples that I notice sometimes couple looks like they're so perfect together, they look so happy together, and then the next thing I hear, they were getting a divorce. So like you can't even tell from the outside.
Right. So, does anyone else have anything that they'd like to share? Okay. So, as I was saying, with looking at the first part, identifying who we are and what we truly need and want. So, being that's the first point that I want to go into. Identifying who we are is really taking that time within ourselves and looking at what it is and discovering ourselves. When I say that, it's not a blanket thing that we just go and it's not something we're going to know immediately. It's going to be a series of things that we begin learning and we're going to develop, and it's going to be ever changing because none of us are going to stay the same. It's always in the flow of change. As we are developing and growing, this is going to continue to evolve with us. So never putting yourself in a box and stating, this is it. The box should remain empty as a space for any of those unfortunate events. We can shove it all in the box and look down in it and go, okay, what do I really need out of that situation? What was I really learning? And then picking out the lesson from it so that we can actually then identify and go, okay, well, that was part of something I really needed. That was something that really helped me to know who I am and that I have grown. Those unfortunate events, because that's what I want to call them, is unfortunate events. When life experiences come into our life, if we don't know what we want and what we need, we may be sacrificing ourselves for another. We may be not paying attention to the details, and we may be allowing for someone to cross our boundaries. So knowing who we are and knowing what we need helps us to start identifying so that we can actually set in the proper boundary and stand for ourselves. Now, when you stand for yourself, sometimes that creates a whole nother problem depending on who you are connected with. If they're in a process as well, they may not be able to actually hear you or understand you because they may not be through their stuff yet. So we cannot take it and go, oh, this person's intentionally harming or hurting. They're reacting because they're not healed. When you know yourself and you love yourself, you can truly set in a space and deliver an open space of real love for another when you love yourself. You can understand that they're in a process because you've come through yours. And it changes the dynamic of how you're going to respond when others are doing whatever it is that they're doing. And getting a foundational truth to you, knowing your wants and your needs, allows you to identify when things aren't equal to what you need. So that'll move me to the second point of today's presentation. And what that point is in regards to, we need to begin cultivating and spending time every day to create our space of personal self-awareness, creating that space for us to realize that our different needs, as well as building the confidence that we need. Now, I want to show you guys, I've created in my course, there's 90 affirmations that I use. And I created a deck of cards, for them that I hand painted in regards to, using as a quick reference. So here I want to go ahead and just real quick, one of the things that I've realized, I'm going to pull one of our affirmations for today, just so we have something to go with. And the one that just popped out is, I savor the very thought that helps me grow. I savor the very thoughts that help me grow. That is our affirmation for the day. So one of the things for building confidence is beginning to give ourselves the words that we need. How many times do we want to hear from somebody else that we did a good job? How many times do we spend in a day wishing that somebody else would support our dreams and our desires and our hopes? And we can't have somebody else fill those things until we fill them ourselves. I spent a long time in my life hoping that somebody would believe in me because I didn't have the encouragement and the growth and development that I needed in my younger years. And I had to feed that inner child and give her what she needed so long ago. So when we're really tuning into ourselves and beginning an understanding of ourselves, we have to remember, if those things weren't met as an adult, and we're sitting and hoping and praying and wishing and spraying every thought and word out into the world, what we need to do is pull it back and say, okay, why is this happening? Why am I doing this? Well, I'm doing this because my inner child is screaming out for attention. My inner child needs this love and adoration that she should have received when she was so young, that would have helped to develop. But when we've come from our brokenness and our circumstances and our situations, we are left in the residual, it's almost a war zone that we're literally pulling ourselves out of when we've gone through traumatic experiences. So when we have those traumatic experiences, we have to begin setting a tune for ourselves and begin with affirming those things. And it has to be done in repetition. It has to be constant. We've got to say it several times. We've got to look at it. I really recommend mirror work. Taking those affirmations and putting them on your mirror and saying them to yourself until you can begin believing them. Because when you start, I will tell you, and I'll be the first one to raise my hand and say, I did not believe any of those affirmations when I first started saying them. I thought they were a big hill, a crock of crap. And I really honestly thought, yeah, that's going to help me. Well, let me go say some positive words in a mirror. But I remember the very moment as I was developing this course. I was quite a few days in. It was probably around day 27, 28 into what I was doing. And the affirmation I created was, I radiate self-confidence. I radiate confidence. The first time through, because I had done this when I was developing it the first time, I didn't believe that. The second time through, now mind you, this is a full quarter of the year. It's 90 days. So here I was only about 20, 30 days into it. I didn't believe those words, but that was the affirmation I chose to create because I was trying to build a space where I could put confidence out of me. I was trying to build that. It took me actually 3/4 of a year. And I remember the third time through it. I remember sitting in front of that mirror, and the first time I said, and this was the first affirmation that set for me, and it was, I radiate self-confidence. And I remember the minute my eyes lit up in that mirror and I saw it for the first time. And I remember how important it was to me that I really could stand up straight for the first time. I could roll my shoulders back, and I could declare that in front of that mirror. And I knew that it was true. That first time was the best for me. And every time when I want to talk about affirmations, that's what I go to. I talk about that one because that one was the first one that really took and became concrete for me. I radiated that. I believed in myself for the first time. Now, this was about 4.5 years ago. For me, only 4.5 years ago, that I finally believed what I was saying. So this is something we're all working through every day. So don't beat yourself up if you're not there. Know that we are ever changing every day and that we have the opportunity at any time to build that. So affirmations is one of the first and foremost that I tell people that are going to be the foundational truths to you so that you can start building up those words that will encourage us, which will take us and actually begin removing that negative dialogue that's going on between our ears. We all have this dialogue that's going in, and generally that dialogue is the sum of the words that other people have told us that broke us down. And it really doesn't have anything to do with ourselves, but we switch into it because it's from the events of all of the circumstances around us. So if we come from a household who had a lot of negativity and a lot of brokenness and a lot of circumstance and a lot of discord, all we're going to be thinking is, I'm less than, I'm not able, I can't, no one will, this won't happen, blah, blah. We have that dialogue. But the affirmations and the positive words that we speak to ourselves can actually take us, and over time will shift us and bring us into an inner dialogue that says where we can actually take control of the thought. So when those words creep up, we can say, no, no, no. And then reaffirm affirmations, reaffirm what it is that we really need. So I can say, you know, when my self-doubt comes in and goes, oh, you know what, you're not good enough to do that. Other people can do that. I can say that's not truth. I'm an unlimited being. I can. I radiate self-confidence and I will go and do that. And I can give myself the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, thanks to Mel Robbins, and say, okay, I'm going to go do it. And, you know, I mean, all of us need to recognize those who we listen to and go, yes, those are the words I needed today. That 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 that she created for everyone actually helped me a lot, because push the button already. Don't sit on it. Don't wait, because you will talk yourself out of something so fast, because self-doubt, negative thought patterns, past circumstances, it's easy for us to believe that we can't. In all actuality, we can't. And that brings us into talking a little bit more about how do we begin identifying who we are? Who are we? Well, first off, the one thing I'm going to say, everyone's probably going to go, no, we are actually whole and complete. There's nothing about us that's separated. The only thing that's separated is the thoughts from our truth. If in the beginning of the foundations of creation, we were whole and complete from the beginning, when God decided that he was going to form us, he formed us in his image and in his likeness, and God is nothing but complete and perfect. And if that's what's deposited into us, and that's our very soul essence of who we are, the only thing that is keeping us from that truth is the narrative going on inside our mind. So pulling that out and realizing that we're whole and complete from the foundations of creation, it changes the dynamic of who we are. Now we can actually know that that's our foundational truth, which then allows us to become authentic. If we're whole and complete from the foundations of creation, the only thing that's separating me from that is my thoughts. How do I shift my thought and begin believing in myself? So that part is one of it, and that is where we actually begin looking at doing the daily self-care, identifying what we need. Now, this is going to be different for every single person. Some people need to go and treat themselves, to get their hair done and their nails done, and day spas, and treating themselves to feeling pampered, the massage, this, that, and the other. Then there's the other type who wants to go out into nature, who's not really worried about all of that, but wants to go and just sit and bask in the glory of the splendor world around us. You have others who are all about that are all mental, who are going to be sitting and need the interaction with other people. So they may not want to be by themselves, but they need to be with others because they're social beings. And that fuels them and fills them. So it may be a night out on the town with the girls that makes them feel empowered and restored. And then there's the others who are introverted, who want to grab a book and curl up and just have their cup of coffee, and they're going to curl up on the couch, read a good book, or curl up in bed, or watch a movie. Where there's so many different types of us, but learning how to self-care is one of the most important things that we can actually do. Beginning to identify what it is that we really need. Now, for everyone, like I said, it's going to be different. But take some time and see what it is that you need and make some time to do it. Let's say you're dating or getting ready to date, and somebody's going to be coming into your space, and you require flowers from your partner. How is that partner going to know you require flowers if you haven't already put those flowers in the center of that table yourself? We have to do for us first. We cannot expect somebody else to come in and do it for us. Now, they will come in and do it for us if we've already established what it is that we need, because then it's going to just be in our energetic body around us. It's going to be in our field, and people are going to see it. They're going to know it. They're going to know that at 5 o'clock in the morning, you're going to sit with your cup of coffee and you're going to write out your affirmations, and you're not going to want to be bothered because you're building up yourself. They're going to know, because this is your routine. This is what you're already doing, that you're going to say, oh, I can't do it during this time because this is what I'm doing. You already know that that's who you are. So that's going to help to layer the foundation for others to know how to honor and respect you. So you are the total key to the love and respect that you're going to receive. But here's the other part. If you're not receiving what you need when you already have that established, the tune of what you are receiving is going to be based off of what you are allowing. And that is the part that's the hardest to actually embody, is how you are also the key to whether or not you're accepting things that are unacceptable. So if you're being mistreated and you're allowing it, you're just as equal the part of the problem, because you are not removing yourself in the adequate time. And I will tell you what the universe will do when you do that, because I've recently had my events that made me realize this one really deeply. So this one may actually make me emotional. With my recent event that I have recently gone through, and I was trying to hold space for someone else because I really do have an understanding. But there were multiple times that space was, those boundaries were broken. And it was broken in words. And I was trying to hold space because I knew that if I loved and held that space and honored that space, I knew that maybe that pain body that they were experiencing could be shut down. But they weren't ready to work through that yet. So what did the universe do? Turns up the circumstance, takes it up another notch, takes it up another notch, and takes it up another notch until it becomes so blatant that your boundaries have been completely destroyed and you have to make a decision that is completely out of what you would normally do. And you have to do what's necessary because now you know. You can't fix it, you can't change it, because no matter how much you want to be there for someone else, no matter how much you love another individual, until they're ready to face those things for themselves and deal with them for themselves, you cannot do it for them. Yes, you can have all the intentions and you can move out of the way until they figure it out. And that is what I wish I would have known before. And that's why I said I wish that this part would probably make me pretty emotional. Because a lesson I had to learn recently was that I was sacrificing my own boundary because I wanted to love somebody else because it was the first time that I'd really felt love from another. Because I had such a bad pain story and I'd finally overcome it and I had put in my boundaries and I knew myself, but I started to sacrifice those, which allowed for other things to happen that went too far. They got escalated because I didn't know when to say enough. Because I thought if I held space for someone else that they could pull through. But that's not up to me. And the universe will turn up the volume on your situations and your circumstances until you respect yourself. So self-love and being the queen of teaching this, I'm still in the process every day. And that is how we know that this is truly my passion and what I do from my whole heart. Because even after my recent event, I still got back up. And I still poured into myself in the last 3 months. What I did was I turned back to the course and I began giving it to myself again. Because no matter how many times I do this, I learn something new about myself every single time. And I grow and become exponentially more evolved every single time. And I am grateful that life has given me series of unfortunate events to learn that. Those situations were not there to harm me. Those situations were only there to teach me so that I could help teach others. So, which leads me into talking about setting our boundaries. Obviously, with what I just exposed, was I was not taking the responsibility of keeping my boundary. So I had to go through something that made me realize I didn't have a choice but to stand up, make a decision, and change my life. I had to do that, and it was tough. And it put me in a space that I had to retreat to repair me first so that I could be back out here to help other people. But I had to go and figure out what it was before I was able to go and share that with others. Because as I just said in the beginning, I would have been just coming from a pain space and saying, well, this happened, because that's what we all do. We all go, well, let me deflect that out. Let me look at it from another party. This is what so-and-so did. This is why they did it. Da, da, da. We have these huge stories. Doesn't matter what we're going through. We have to remember it is really the mirror. If we're going through a situation in life, no matter what they're doing, we have to find out why It's happening. And it begins with us. No matter what it is. It doesn't matter whether or not and it may be, and I'm going to go all the way back to being a child. And like I was saying in the beginning of the call, I was sexually abused as a young girl. And a lot of people will stand in the space and be like, oh, well, you were a little girl. That happened to you. That was not fair to you. These were other people that were big and they knew better. And they will give you 1,000 excuses. When it happened, because of fear, because it was an experience that I needed, I refrained from saying anything. What it was it was teaching me that it was going to be an experience later that I could relate with other people and be able to share my story so they didn't feel alone. Now, it wasn't something I needed to go through. It wasn't something that I should have gone through. But it was an event that generally a lot of us who work in the field of being considered a light worker, the healers, the counselors, the teachers, any of those positional titles, we all generally had a really rough start in life. And it was part of the series of events that allowed us to know how to speak to another, how to be there for another, and how to listen to what's going on around us. But that is what comes after a lot of therapy and a lot of help and a lot of dealing with what is going on the inside. And learning to love and nurture that inner child that lives on the inside. We have a divine feminine, a divine masculine, and an inner child. Those are our board of directors with our life. Ruth Elizabeth's book, The Diamond Matrix, I would recommend to anyone. And the reason why I recommend it is because it really helps you to get a fundamental truth to yourself for understanding your soul sovereignty and who you are. And the reason why I recommend that book is because it really does help. It gave me the words that I already comprehended. It was like, oh, now there's words for this, is what I understand. My divine feminine comes up with all of the ideas. She's wonderful at ideas. She's got plenty of them. My divine masculine steps in and he's the doer. He's going to go out and he's going to execute it and make it happen. My inner child is the one sitting in the adventure going, oh my God, did you see what we just did? And when my inner child gets excited about life, it changes the dynamic of everything. But when our inner child is so wounded from our life experiences, it's caught up in the story and different points of our timeline, she can't get excited about what she's doing. It's our responsibility to dive in there, go find her, pull her back out, and give her the life she really deserves to have. So that is a little bit about the art of learning self-love.
Thank you, Darla. That was amazing. And thank you for sharing your life story, snippet in there. But I'd like to hear from others. What are your thoughts? What do you do with your self-doubt and your dealing with, day-to-day, with your relationships or even with yourself, your kids, your family? I think, Darla, you kind of touch a lot of things where self-love, you begin with yourself and you discover what you want really to be grounded and to set the boundary with others. But oftentimes it's very complex. It's easier said than done. When you're in a family relationship, I know you're telling about your recent story with the breakup, but sometimes like your situation, you're by yourself. Sometimes you have kids involved, you have mother, father, where it's like it's complex, where when you do something to somebody, then other people are affected in the family or something, the dynamic. So I just want to hear others, your experiences and how you deal with it, like on a day-to-day basis, because I think this topic is so relevant about self-love, where love comes from within and you start with yourself, but yet you have to interact with other people on a daily basis. So who wants to start? Joey, you have a lot of kids, but your family seems to be so uniform and united. And tell us if you experience anything like this.
Okay. Well, first of all, thanks for sharing these very intimate details about your past. And I can't imagine what you went through, but it was so courageous of you to share your experience. What I can share is that this is what I always say. I just always go back to what's the law of attraction, and it starts with a thought, and whether it's positive or negative, it evokes a certain feeling, whether positive or negative, depending on the thought, and that feeling emits a certain vibration or frequency, which then attracts the same kind of vibration. So knowing that, I know that whatever is my reality is my own doing. I can't blame others about it. If it's a bad reality, then I ask myself, what thoughts brought me to this current reality? And, I'm really very thankful about my discovery of the law of attraction, and from not stopping myself from delving deeper into it, because now I'm able to really direct my life. I'd like to share with you that as a child, I was also molested, not raped, molested. And perhaps growing up, I must have kept it hidden and deep within my subconscious that it didn't really affect me that much growing up. But it was just recently that I remembered most of what happened. But it's a good thing that even before I remembered all this, I already forgave my past. I'm already too deep into law of attraction. I already know how to control my life, because if I go back to all these, hurts and pains, I will just affect my current reality. And moving forward, I didn't want that to affect this perfect family that I have brought up. So I'm always very mindful of the law of attraction. And it's always just that whenever it creeps up, I just think, okay, what kind of feeling does it bring me? All right, then you go back to the past, forgive your past again, say to the child, then it wasn't your fault. It was a fault of the adults in your life. You were a child. You couldn't control. So always go back to the past, forgive it, and don't mind the adults that hurt you, the pain that it cost you. Never mind all those things, because right now, if you bring it to your present, then it's still going to affect you. I mean, it has affected you in the past. Now it's now up to you. Now that I'm an adult, I don't want it to ruin my life now. So I'm always just going back. I know it might seem like I've handled it already, but it's a process, an ongoing process. But then again, I can always just share with you, it's the law of attraction. What you think about and you feel about, then it just attracts to you the same kind of vibration. So that's why we have these tools to break the patterns right away. We use these tools, and the kids know that, because every day we experience negativity, right? But then there should always be a time lapse. You have to stop the pattern and then focus again on trying to feel positive again.
That was
You,
beautiful.
Joey.
Joey, can I say something to what you're saying in regards to that? I want you to be mindful of another situation, though. Being the fact that this is an area that you still are harboring, and it comes back up, it is between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, between the two, this is an underlining root issue that is unresolved. And that's why it still trickles to the surface and comes back up. Working on developing your self-worth and your self-discovery will allow you to actually uproot those core issues, which will then allow, if you're finding in any areas of your life that you are not able to manifest through the law of attraction what you are dealing with, it can come from those subconscious memories that are still plaguing our current day. So with you wanting to do so much in regards to the law of attraction, being the mindfulness and looking out for those things, sometimes we do have to go back and deal, not just when it comes up and just deal with it temporarily and letting it go, but actually working through the dynamics of it so that we can actually unravel it, where we can pull up the full root of it and no longer allow it to affect our current life. That's why it's so easy for me to talk about mine without it being a negative and being so vulnerable, where everybody's like, oh my gosh, you just went into the most vulnerable thing you could possibly talk about. It was because I actually uprooted all of that and unraveled that whole story at some point in my life, where I dealt with every emotional status of it so that I don't have that as anything that's reoccurring and affecting my life today. It's something that I can easily talk about now instead of it being something that percolates. These types of things are a form of grief. And here's what happens with grief. If we have a situation that's sitting on the underside of in the subconscious mind, it's like a kettle pot, and it's sitting there and it's percolating. And at any given moment, when we just keep stuffing other things that remind us of that pain, and we just touch the very top surface of what's feeling, we're literally putting a cork in that kettle. And eventually it'll explode. So it's really, really important for us to really, if we still find those things are coming up, taking some time. This is part of our personal self-care, is taking the time to recognize we have this coming up to our surface in our mind. We're like, oh, well, let me deal with this feeling right now. Let me put that away. That book can be pulled out at any time. And it's important that we can pull that book and read and work through it. But really, truly taking the time for that personal development of yourself and really feeling and getting through it will actually relieve it completely. So it doesn't have to be, then it literally gets shelved for the rest of it, and you don't have to have it come percolating back up and affecting anything in life.
Thanks, Darla. I just wanted to clarify that it cropped up only just recently, like 2 years ago in 2020, and we dealt with it. My husband and I dealt with it. The entire family dealt with it, and I can tell you honestly that it doesn't really affect me anymore. Just
Beautiful,
like I said,
beautiful. So
like
you
really,
did do
I
that.
mean, I can talk about it. I mean, I can freely discuss it with my children, and I tell them every time that, you know what, I can't hear any drama from you, because if there is a person here who can who has the right to be dramatic, it would be me, because of what I experienced. So with them, I can't allow them to have any drama in their life. So anyway, I mean, I've dealt with it, and yes,
Beautiful,
I
beautiful.
totally, it's because of the self-development that we do in the
Well, the
family.
only reason why I was saying anything was so that others who are listening to this later will understand the importance of really dealing with the personal self-care. And I'm so grateful to hear, Joey, that you really have done your internal work and you're doing really great. And I can even see that beaming in your face. I really do see that healing. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Joey, for sharing. And Darla, I know we only have like 5 more minutes. Anyone else who wants to share about your thoughts on this topic of how do you deal with your self-care and your feelings when emotions on a daily basis?
I'll go
Um,
ahead.
okay, go ahead, Suzanne.
All right.
Yeah.
So, Darla, you have an excellent point, and I resounded with a lot of what you said, and I went through that process, and I finally just completely released and let it out, pulled that weed. I did a poem not too long ago where I just kind of said, nope, this is it. This is what the decision they've made. This is where they feel I don't belong. Fine. I've gone out to find my own needs, and my needs, based on what you were saying, is the social, the family social. So I've gone out and found a new family that will give me what I need, which is the human touch. That's the only thing I'm finding that I still need, is the human touch. That's other than that, the self-care, the emotion. I mean, I am not the person I was even in 2021 before I went through 2022 and everything came to the surface and I just dealt with it through letters and everything. And then I wrote out this poem not too long ago and I said, okay. I yanked that weed out and it was gone.
That's one of the other things I do in the 90-day course is I have people write either a poem, a letter, or something to themselves so that they can actually receive the words that are necessary. So that is a beautiful thing you're doing for yourself. I'm glad that you brought that out as an attentive place. When we fill ourselves with those words, it's beautiful. Keep going. I want to hear more.
Yeah, it's not too long. We go up into women's chat probably about, when was it? About early April, late March. I wrote this poem about I go to the fire. And the fire is mom. And then I say at the bottom, my brothers just don't see I don't belong. That's okay. That's their decision, not mine. I'm going out for something else in my life, and it's so much better. And a lot of people can say that I'm just a different person.
That's beautiful.
That's awesome, Suzanne. Thank you so much. Jane, you have something to say?
Yeah, I do. Oh, it's so great being here with everyone. And Darla, your contribution to the world is, well, it's unequaled. You know, what you're doing and what you're giving back, and your wisdom is unmatched by so many people out there that are doing and needing exactly what it is that you can distribute. So I'm so thankful to be here and to hear those words and to know that there's help for everyone.
It really
You
is.
know, that nobody has to live in pain, discomfort, shame, so on. You know, I guess I was one of the luckier ones where, you know, I wasn't abused in any way, but still, it's like we all have a heart, and we all have our pains and our struggles. But yeah, so you just keep doing you, Darla. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, it's such an amazing topic, Darla. And thank you, Jane, for that. Tamara, you have something that you wanted to say?
Oh, I apologize. My internet went down, so I missed the last like 5 minutes trying to get on frantically. Like, oh, it was a good part
Thank
too.
you back.
But I'm back. But I loved your presentation. And my new mantra is get your happy back. And you explained everything so perfectly about what I was thinking in my head, but couldn't put it into coherency. So what you're saying like totally resonates. And I'm grateful that I was able to be here and listen to you today, because you have such a gift in being able to announce what it is that people are feeling and hearing and seeing. You know, as a child of abuse myself, you know, knowing those boundaries that you have to put up, knowing that self-care you have to give, that is just so imperative, especially when you're first beginning this work. So thank you so much for your openness and your ability to get out there and do this work for people.
Thank you so much, Tamara. We only have a few more minutes, so I'd like to give everyone a chance to say something. Omeka, you have something to say?
I'd missed most of it, so I'll catch the replay. But yeah, thank everybody for just speaking from their heart and sharing such yeah, careful topics. And yeah, it's all about healing for me in this lifetime, yes. And to live it is to share your experience and help others heal. So thank you.
Thank you, Omeka. I know you're such a blessing. You're caring for your mom. You know, that was not easy to do,
Yeah,
but
that's I
yeah.
need to share that more.
Thank you
So
for
your
being
courage
here. Okay.
gets me some courage. So thank you.
Yeah. Julie?
Darla, you just have the Darla, darling Darla name, which is perfect.
Darling is what it means.
So, I share so much of that. I mean, I wasn't abused sexually or anything as a child either, but my mother was very dominant and very overpowering and dominating, and so I wasn't allowed to be me, you know. So it took me a long time to find myself, and I'm still doing that. So it's interesting, and it's a journey, and you think that you're there, you know. You think, oh yeah, and I loved doing the work with Ruth too. Ruth was amazing at bringing things to the surface for me. But I was really surprised how I went back with the loss of my brother. He was my kind of rock in the family, you know, all the way through my life. And I just totally lost the plot there for a bit, you know. The grief was enormous. And I felt as if I had nothing left, you know. But it's coming right. And I didn't look after myself, you know. I went right back deep into, and it was really, really self-neglect, to the point of allowing things to happen to me, almost from a blind trust, you know, and kind of knowing that it wasn't quite right, but also saying, well, it's okay to treat me like that, you know, a little bit, because that's how I had that was my default. Do you know what I mean? Was going back and saying, oh no, they're not trying to do that. So, but they were, you know. So and I was allowing it. So it was always me allowing it. So go to you too, Joey. I totally agree that you've got a choice. You can allow that to wallow, you know, that kind of, oh, I've done some wallowing. I have to tell you, over the last months, I've done some real whale wallowing. Whoa. And, you know, it came up with shingles and all sorts of things as a result. But, you know, at the end of the day, we've got a choice to turn that round and forgive. And I realised with a lot of the work I'd done with Ruth, I had forgiven a lot. So, lovely stuff.
Thank you, Julie.
It still bubbles up from time to time. Yeah.
Thank you, Julie, for sharing. We actually already passed the hour, but I'd like to give Kathleen and Faith a chance to say something. Kathleen, go ahead. Kathleen, are you there? Faith, are you able to speak?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't have my I was muted. Really quick, because I know we're after the hour. That was wonderful, so eloquently spoken, for all of us who have been through trauma and even those who haven't. This was so helpful. And whether you know these exercises to do to help grow self-love, hearing it as was spoken today really reinforces the I guess the desire to keep at it, you know, to keep chipping away and keep trying, because it is a slippery slope and it is a practice. And once we stop practicing, when we stop trying, it's so easy to slide back down into the old behaviors and the old feelings and thoughts. So thank you for a wonderful, another wonderful presentation. It was great.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathleen.
And I just got to work, so I can run.
Yes. Thank you, Kathleen. Faith?
Yes, I'd like to thank Darla for her wonderful presentation. All of it resonated with me. I have a lot of questions, but I know we're out of time, so I'll just make a couple of quick points. I realize that I'm a partner in my dysfunction, but I don't exactly know what to do because I don't have any boundaries and I need to set boundaries. I often Google how to learn to set boundaries. But when I ignore me and I don't set boundaries, I just let everybody do what they want to do and keep being the people pleaser for the peace. I often end up feeling sick. And I think of that, there was an old show, it's actually before my time a little bit, but it was called Lost in Space. And they had this robot that said, "Danger, Will Roger, danger, Will Roger."
Yes.
So every time I start to feel sick, I'm like, "Oh, I'm my own little robot. Danger, Faith, danger. You need to back it up and stop engaging in what you're engaging." But I wondered if you often had that, and do you really think it's possible? I mean, I think there was this wonderful lady that was presenting mushrooms, which I didn't even think that talk would interest me, but it was very interesting. And she said this line that has stuck with me: "Have I suffered enough? Am I going to stop it now? I have suffered enough." And I thought, wow, that so resonated with me, and it just goes in with this thing. So I'm wondering, do you think it's possible for everyone, if they keep on being persistent, to learn to love themselves?
Yes, I know that it's possible because I do know the desperation of the fact that there was a point where I wished that I could have disconnected and no longer had breath in my lungs. And I do know that today I passionately get up every day and live my life in hopes that I can find others to teach them how to do it as well. Because there is a way to walk through this. We can bridge ourselves. And if you look behind me, these two images are different points of my life. I've painted both of them. The one in the shattered heart was exactly how I felt when I was at the desperation and really wished that I could have succeeded at a suicide attempt. The one with the restored heart was literally me at that point where I was beginning to rebloom and change my life. So yes, anybody with the right intent, if they set themselves to it, you can become the best you that you can be as long as you dedicate yourself to yourself each and every day.
Wow, that's great. Faith, you can always reach out to Darla. Darla, after the presentation, if you want to put your link or whatever on the messenger chat, Facebook, that our Women's Coffee Club chat, that'd be great. Thank you, everyone. One thing I want to say, I use this thing from that I learned from Jack Canfield. It's ERO, event plus response equal outcome. So like your event is going to happen however it's happening, but it's your response. Like how do you respond to that? Do you set boundary? Do you tell yourself enough is enough? I need to, like, I am important, because sometimes we don't value ourselves. We don't um we don't love ourselves enough to say that we're valuable, so we don't set boundary. But that respond, like how do you respond to a situation like what Darla was just doing? It's very, very tough sometimes, but if you love yourself enough, you need to take that action. So thank you. Such an amazing, amazing topic, Darla. So grateful for you and all of you. Next week we'll be hearing from Julie and her her talk about humanity. I hope all of you can join us. But with that, thank you again, everyone, and have a great week. Have a great day, and love you all. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Blessings, love, and light. Thank you.
Bye. Darla, I forgot to say, I'm going to give you the last word. Do you want to say something to the group before we close?
The only thing left that I really had to say was if there was anybody out there that listened to today felt that they needed that there was some areas of question, I am offering free consultations to see if it is something that I can assist you with. So all you need to do is I will put my Facebook link into our chat, and from there just add me or whatever, and then you can do is private DM me, and from there we can set up a free consultation where you can talk, and we can do that for a half hour, and to see what I actually share, what the prices are for different services that I have. And I would definitely love to be able to work with anyone on here and help them. What I do is truly from my passion, from my heart. I get up every day and I look for people that, even if I do it for free, it doesn't matter to me. What I want to do is be able to help others to find that freedom within themselves, because we all deserve it and you're worth it. So if you can, just reach out to me and we will find a way that will work with you, whatever
Sounds
that
good.
means.
Thank you, Darla. Again, thank you so much. Yeah, please feel free to put your link on our messenger chat. Thank you again, everyone. Have a great day. See you all. Bye-bye.